Hey, what's going on? It is February 16th, Aloha Friday, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today we are talking about Gemini Advanced. So before we jump into that, we have Junmi, Beth, Carl, and I'm Brian. And the goal of today's show is really just to kind of set the stage, do a little bit of an overview of what Gemini Advanced is, which we'll get into in a second, and then to give you sort of our honest review as it applies right now. Now, over time, there's more options for us to go in and use it in different ways. And then, you'll see a YouTube video, you'll see something within the AI exchange. You'll be like, oh, I hadn't thought about that use case. And then you go to find out that maybe it's phenomenal in that use case or not. So that's still happening because this is something that was only really released within the last, 2 weeks. So fairly new, but we've all taken some time to work with it. And we wanted to bring you back sort of our early thoughts about, as you maybe saw in the thumbnail, thinking about Gemini makes me think of the space program. Is Gemini out of this world? Is it everything that Google said it was going to be, or is it more of a crash and burn? So let's set the stage really quick. I'll just do a very quick overview. So Gemini and what Google is doing, it's their LLM. It was called Bard. They've sunsetted the name Bard, and now it's Gemini. They also have another term in there, Ultra, which is important to know. Gemini would be the analogy would be Gemini would be like saying ChatGPT. Gemini Advanced would be like saying ChatGPT Plus, and Ultra would be like saying GPT 3.5 or 4. It's the model on which it's built. Right? Does that sound right? Did I do that right? Yeah. I'm getting upset. I'm getting nods from Jimmy. I'm like, did I get that right? Because it confuses me too. And I think it confuses everybody. It's like advanced and ultra and all this other stuff. But that's what we're talking about. So we all signed up and are using for our they give you 2 free months trial. So when you go to Gemini, just Gemini to use it, you can use that part free. Then they have their sort of better model, the one that they were sort of saying that benchmark test was performing or outperforming GPT-4, which is still the gold standard nearly a year after it was released, which is pretty amazing considering like things that happened yesterday with Sora, which we will get into today, how fast things move in AI. So that's sort of the overview today. Now with that laid out, if anybody wants to add anything to that, just for further clarity, that would be great. Otherwise, maybe let's start talking about some use cases. I certainly can talk about some of mine, but does anybody have anything else to add for clarity's sake? Jimmy.
Clarity, not so much. I think you covered it. There's Gemini, the model, and then there's Gemini, the service, right? That's kind of what it breaks down to. I think the one thing I wanted to make sure that was said, and this could just because it's new, it's fast. I really enjoyed the speed. Yeah, like I tried to do some comparisons between ChatGPT with GPT-4 and Gemini Advanced with Gemini Ultra. And the speed I got out of the Gemini side was really impressive. Mm-hmm. It takes a quick moment to calculate, and then I see my entire response, which is fantastic. The slow printout, I'm sure it's fairly close in the grand scheme of things, but after having to work with ChatGPT over the last couple of weeks, in comparison, just getting more and more slowdowns. The other thing I really like is I didn't run into any limitations. Like I was just hacking away for 2 hours straight, trying this question and that prompt and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't run into anything that says, oh no, now you got to wait for a couple hours.
Right. You got to use the lower Gemini, the basic Gemini. Right. Yeah.
And usually that works to my favor in ChatGPT because I'll get blinders on sometimes and I'll just be like, okay, let's go. And then it forces me to take a break. Cool. That's fun sometimes, but not when you're trying to do a test of capabilities. But those are the two main things that I wanted to make sure that got across is it's really fast, at least right now, and there's no limitations.
Yeah, those are two huge call outs for sure. The speed I noticed right off the bat, it is faster. It is better. answers, faster, better answers. I think that really depends on the use case, which I think is what, I'm hoping we can spend a lot of this time. So maybe, unless anybody else has anything, I don't want to jump over it, but like maybe we can actually, the better way to do this would be like to talk individual use cases. For instance, images. Did you guys play around with creating images? What was your experience with doing that? And then let's kind of give it a comparison. Really right now, what we can compare it to is ChatGPT using DALL-E 3 in Thread, right? So that would be the closest comparison that we have at the moment. We're not talking about, Mid-Journey or anything where Stable Diffusion, where we're using something outside. We're simply giving a comparative, apples to apples. I'm in a thread, I'm talking about something, I have it doing this creative writing, then I want an image to go with it or something like that. What was your guys' experience as far as images go?
You get more images, because the prompt I used to test was really simple. Create me image of a cat drinking milk. Super simple. Speed wise, I've always thought Bard, or now Gemini, has always, from a web search perspective, has always been super smooth and faster. And I feel like the user experience on the face of it feels like, it feels really, really like crisp. Always feels crisp. And I don't know if that's the style thing where OpenAI has always been about, line by line writing it out versus it just shows up. So I think that's more of a style thing. I do, every time, there are prompts and how to regenerate the same images with DALL-E versus Gemini. I haven't really learned how to, hey, can I get a consistent image? I haven't really tried some of those methods yet, but I feel they're very comparable in terms of, but I do like the 4 images you get.
And by the way, that's the way for at least the first couple of days. That's the way DALL-E 3 worked inside of ChatGPT, and I love that. It was so nice to get 4. Like Mid-Journey kind of always did that too. It was nice to get 4 images to start with, and then kind of the Mid-Journey method, which is you dive in to one. You're like, well, that's the closest of what I was trying to achieve, and you dive into that photo. I think they're going to get there eventually, but I agree with you. Like, I was so upset when ChatGPT reduced it down to just 1 image. I make all the thumbnails for this show, and it can be a good weekend or it can be a bad weekend. And usually the difference is if I just can't get something rocking and rolling with the thumbnails. With that said, one thing I'll push back on is I tried several times, unless you guys found a way, I could not produce anything but a square image in Gemini. In ChatGPT, I can request it to be in a 16:9 ratio, which is what I need for the show and the thumbnails, and it will give me the wider format. In Gemini, I tried several different ways. I'm not saying I used every single one, but I tried several different ways to ask for it in different aspect ratios. And although, and this is a big issue I have with Gemini, is it's very quick to say it can do something that it absolutely cannot do. It reminds me of Pi in using that app, which is a lot of real quick, absolutely, let me go ahead and do this for you, which ends up being a whole load of BS because it can't. And that's more frustrating for the end user. So it would tell me it was going to create the wider and then just go ahead and create 4 more or 2 more square images, which is super frustrating because you're looking at it saying, I'm going to do this for you, and then failing. It would just be better if it said, I'm only capable of producing square images at this time. Great. I got my answer. I know exactly what my limitations are of this tool. It's way more frustrating to have it try to tell you it's doing it when you can clearly see that it wasn't. And that's not the only use case. That's just images. Yeah. I saw that over and over and over again, but let's stay inside of images. Beth or Jimmy, did you guys create images?
So this is where we need to be reminded that that the entire communication set that we are doing is based on prediction modeling. And so there is no prediction model, I think, in this that makes, hey, I can do part of what you said, but not the other part, right? The predictive next word is like, yep or nope. those are the 2 most likely.
I get you. They need to dial that back though, Beth, because like, great. It's a prediction model, but it's got to be based in some sort of reality,
Right. But I'm just saying that none of the models modify what they can do, right? None of the models take what you're saying and say, well, I can do part of that, but not the other part.
No.
Do
if
they?
I ask for an image of Elon Musk, it'll say no. It won't say, great, let me give
Right.
that to you.
It'll
and you give me
say
an image of
absolutely
somebody else.
no, or it will say absolutely yes. It
Right.
does not say, I can do part of what you've asked me for, and I can't do the other part. But yes, it is not accurate, because I got a bunch of, I can't do that. I asked things that we know it can do, because the
that's
free
the other side.
version can do can like summarize a YouTube video. So
Right.
so I, like, no, I'm sorry, I don't have access to YouTube video. No,
Well,
you 100% do, and you're really good at this. Like, go ahead and try to give it to me.
Well, see, that's the thing I ran into, because I was really excited about the video aspect, right? Because it's multimodal, it can handle all these kinds of things, and I understand they've been somewhat clear with what's possible, but I totally wanted to just have it, like, if I fed it a video, it could watch the video for me and analyze it and give me some information and stuff like that. It can't. And I've tried to tell it it could, but it says still no. And then I asked it, because initially it, like you said, it's very helpful. It tries to do the thing that you want, right? And so I asked it, like, well, you're multimodal and you have video capabilities. You've told us that before. It's like, yes. How do I give you the video? It's like, oh, we can't upload video right now. You got to give us a URL. I'm like, okay, I give you a URL. And it does say specifically, give us a YouTube URL if you can. And so I feed it a YouTube URL, and it says, oh, this video is about this. I'm like, okay, that was instantaneously. Did you play the video? Did you even play the video at 10 speed? How did you view all the images?
How's that possible?
Yeah. And then it just tells me, and then finally I get it to admit, it's like, oh, well, I just read everything about the video, and then I extrapolated what the video was about, and then I drew on my information to tell you what the elements of the video were. And I'm just like, okay.
But, again, I think those are predictive answers. I do not believe
100%. Yeah.
But like, when it's saying it, I don't think it's actually telling you what it did.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I don't think it has a concept of what it does and then can translate that for you. I think it's using the predictive things to give you the most likely next answer, which is not necessarily an assessment of its own activity. Gotcha. And then telling you what it is.
I will say that it's definitely tuned to seem more self-aware. Like, I went through a whole list of generated a whole list of tests, prompts, and things like that to test capabilities, both from ChatGPT to test another ChatGPT, and ask Gemini itself to create stuff. And whenever I referenced Gemini, it would take on a tone that it more recognized itself. And I know that's completely, predictive there. But that seems to be, for me anyways, it seems to be a little more comfortable when I'm speaking naturally. It's like, if I'm speaking to a person, right, I'm going to reference them. I'm gonna point to them about, and relate to them when I'm asking my questions. When I do that in ChatGPT, it has no idea of itself. Like, and I understand on both things they don't have an idea of themselves, but
that's how it's
the way that it's tuned, I feel a little more comfortable in speaking or typing to Gemini than ChatGPT in that sense. And I don't know if that's going to be if that's a long-term value add, but I was speaking a little more natural to Gemini than I do ChatGPT, because I understand.
It's definitely intentional. Gemini's your buddy, Gemini's your pal. It's your intern sitting next to you. You're just having a conversation. It's super easy. Like, come on, they want, low hanging fruit, low barrier of entry for people who aren't using this. And that was if you remember, that was our initial reaction to Pi, which was like, wow, that's really conversational. And just if you had the voice on, the way it would talk back to you, be like, wow, I really feel like I'm speaking sort of with somebody else as opposed to an LLM or whatever. And, look, on the prompts, we can get into images again, but they also have the microphone, which enables us to just naturally speak in what we're looking to accomplish, which is a great way to do it. And then you get a more natural answer. So I agree with you, Jimmy. Like, I don't know, what would the word for it be? It's more pleasant to have a long-term conversation with Gemini than ChatGPT, in my opinion. Like, I enjoyed it more. I'm not talking about quality of answer. I'm just saying I enjoyed the conversational aspect of it more.
The only way that I know that like, for me, I've changed my custom instructions to that to feel for that kind of level, because I do a lot of walks with talks on the mobile. I do think, like, like when you're talking to it, it's like, I feel if Gemini came out before GPT-4, if it did, then we would have this whole thing would be a completely reverse conversation. Like, I just feel like because we've already kind of predisposed to everything that ChatGPT, OpenAI, right? So it's like,
right.
And everything's being compared against it. So it's really it's really hard to break through. If every single thing is being compared against it, then it's like everyone has everyone's using it, whatever. But if Gemini came out before ChatGPT, I think just because of speed, that's what I always liked about Bard, was from a web search perspective, until I started using Perplexity, it was just faster. Like, it's just better than Bing. Like, it's just like that thing would go, oh my gosh, this is gonna take forever. This is really brutal. It's like, versus and sometimes it would feel that the circle thing would take longer, but I actually compared the two and it was the same, but just that, like, that star going, it just feels faster. And then they would come out. And at the end, I saw, it's like, oh, they both displayed kind of around the same time, maybe like half a second off, but it felt Bard was faster just because of the design, like the UI, like, oh, it feels like that, right? So it's an interest. I was just thinking about it. It's like, oh, if any of this was released before, but it's really, really hard to displace, like, when everything's being compared to GPT-4, which you have to think, it's how many months has it been since GPT-4 has come out?
I think they were saying, we were talking about the other day, it's like 12. It's like been a year or something like that.
A good year, right? So and not all. I don't think any model has quote unquote beat it, which all the media is like, oh, it's beat it. It's like, well, no, that means like the whatever OpenAI did to get to 4 must have been like ridiculous, because even Google has just released something that, like, is just comparable today,
right?
So it's fascinating. But I do feel like this, they keep saying this is version 1.0, so you would argue this would be at the same level as GPT-4 when it first came out, and then none of all the features and things that are built in and all that kind of stuff. I still believe there's going to be like a custom GPT type thing in Gem. It would just, to me, make sense.
So one of the things that I really loved about Gemini that we haven't really talked about is that if I'm willing, I can give it access to my Google Drive and my Gmail, and it can have a conversation with me about what's in that without my needing to find it, without my needing to upload it, without any of that. So for me, even if it's just at GPT-4's level or slightly less than GPT-4's level, to be able to say, hey, I was in a conversation with Cassie and Adam, and we were talking about an event in March. Summarize those conversations for me, right? And it's 4 emails over a period of 3 months, right? Like, let's That alone is like, yes, okay,
Well,
I'm with you.
One thing there though, and it's pretty important for our listeners, like if you do connect this to an email, I think there's a notice that says it will train on said your.
Oh, right.
So if you are an enterprise or whatever,
Yeah.
I don't know right now what the connection is there, but it's like, just to let you know, you connect it, whether I think it's your Google Docs and Gmail. If you're concerned about privacy, not that we're like, well, Google probably has this stuff, but like, I think there was
Google
a note.
totally has this stuff.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's
It's
just like-
definitely.
Google is reading my
definitely-
emails and giving me ads based on what the email is showing them.
But it was very.
Oh, well,
it was
that's
very,
the whole predictive.
That has been established long ago.
But
Yeah.
like, I think it's like.
Yes, it is an important thing for enterprise. Absolutely.
Especially for Drive,
Yeah.
right? It's like if you connect your Drive,
yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
whatever
And
you have in
the-
Drive.
And by the way, I again with the of course I can absolutely do this type stuff. One of the first things I did, it said, well, that's going to be a longer answer. Do you want to go ahead and start putting those notes in a Google document? And I was like, yes. Then it asked me, do you want me to create the link, or do you want to create the link and just make it a shareable link and then give me the URL? I'll do that. So I create a document. I put a title on it. I tell it specifically the title, whatever. It says, great, thanks. And very much the way, I know I keep referencing Pi, but it was very similar to it from months ago. We had a funny story about this. My wife and I, Pi was just insistent that it was going to put together some amazing portfolio for me. And my wife and I was, there's no chance this is going to work. Well, very similar with Gemini, where it was like, just stand by. And it even went as far as to say, in the next few minutes, you'll start to see my outline on the document. It was like, thank you for the URL. There was never once anything that suggested it could not accomplish the task. The thing is, I think this is definitely coming, and it has not quote unquote rolled out yet. But damn it, man, if it can't do it, it should say that's in a future release or whatever. Like, it is, again, going back to my point about, it's extremely frustrating as an end user. And what I worry about is, okay, we're all testing it. We all do AI stuff all the time. That's us. We're always willing to say, it is as good as it's good today or whatever. But what about the thousands, 100,000s, and eventually millions of people who are just stepping into Gemini and it may be advanced, maybe they took the 2-month advance, and they're getting this type of experience? I think this absolutely turns people off from using AI in areas where maybe it could be really helpful for them, because they're not going to have the whole knowledge of knowing that, well, in some cases it does this or whatever. They just want it to work. The end result is, I just need it to work. And it's just a real letdown from their perspective if I don't really have all this background knowledge of AI and it says it's going to create the document and it straight up doesn't do it. That just becomes a huge waste of my time as an end user. And I got to be honest, it's going to be a hard press for me to come back to it just to see if it can get it done 3 or 4 months from now. I'm probably just not. I'm going to move on to something else, or go back to ChatGPT, or go to Copilot, which we have a lot of people talking about that too with Microsoft, on and on. So it's a letdown for me, because again, however it needs to work, Beth, you talked about it being predictive. I get that, but it needs to do a better job of defining the barriers of where it can go. I mean, just yesterday, this is not really for today's topic, but they announced this idea of 1.5 Ultra, and they have 3 or 4 YouTube videos where they're clear to say we've sped up the time of the video, but we haven't enhanced it, because they already got their hands slapped for that in December. But that is exactly what you were saying, Jimmy, where it was able to take very long transcripts from the Apollo mission. It was able to take videos, Buster Keaton old video, and it could say, when does this happen in the video? And it time stamped it and immediately told them, this is the point. And it was right. They drew a picture of like a water well thing. They're like, when does this happen? It was a crude drawing of water coming out of a spigot, about as good as I could possibly draw. It again got the right timestamp for it. Are these cherry-picked examples? Are these highly, again, with Google on it? We don't know. And that's also future stuff anyway. That's not even where we are today, because like you said, Jimmy, you couldn't get that to work. I also tried more simple. You tried video. I tried an image, and I said, what's going on in this image? And I was like, let me try. So I gave it an image of a freeze frame from a football game, American football, where a player was offsides. You could clearly see that player. And I was like, I wonder if it can determine what's going on. At base, I would have taken this is a football game. This seems to be a football game. I'd be like, cool. I looked at the picture, whatever. Couldn't do it. And it said, I can't look at your images. Can you it said, can you describe the image? Then gave me about 4 pages of text of how I could go and describe it. I'm like, I'm not doing that. So then I was like, let me try something different because it did have people in it, right? It technically had football players. And I've heard that can be an issue if it has images of people. So then I gave it an image of, I had just recently bought an inflatable screen, also for the Super Bowl for outside. And I happen to have an image on my computer. So I was like, great, what's in this image and where can I buy it? So weirdly, over 3 different things, it said, you can buy inflatable screens here and here. But in every single answer it gave me, it said, although I cannot see what's in your image. I'm like, well, it's not labeled inflatable screen. So there was no metadata. It was a Snagit screenshot. So there was no metadata to come over with it that I'm aware of because Snagit wouldn't have had it. Yet it knew that it was an inflatable screen and gave me, Walmart, Amazon. It didn't give me links, but it gave me.
Well, of course, because it has to process the image to know that it can't process, right? It's not allowed to process the image. It's not saying
but I know
that
it is.
No, it totally knows what it is. It's just giving you the answer that says, because I get that all the time, right? Like, this has a person in it. I can't do it. And I'm like, no, it actually has a doll in it. Look, it's made of yarn.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. I was just right. Like, I'm happy to talk to you about this image now. Carl, we interrupted you 10 minutes ago.
I was just laughing at the slick videos because it's always about the slick videos, right? You got, we're going to drop the slick videos and we're going to look at these videos. And it's like, it feels like that's like, sorry, small rants. Like that is Google modus operandi. Drop the videos, get people kind of excited. And then knowing that it's like not fully baked in. And I do feel Gemini, I don't know. What did you all think? Do you think that Advanced was released a little too early? Like they haven't finally tuned it and they're just like, oh, we have to go. Like we just have to put it out because we have no choice. Or is it like, hey, this is as good as we're going to get. And we're just going to get the feedback. Like I forgot Jack I forgot his last name on X, who's constantly taking the feedback. It's like, hey, we have reduced the amount of,
the Magnific guy?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Reduce the restrictions. We're trying to reduce the restriction because it was very restrictive, right? So he's always saying like, we're reducing it. And he's pretty open to all the feedback that they're getting. So
I think that's what they're doing. They're like, they don't have to pay team members. Here you go. You got 2 months free. Complain online and we get a ton of feedback. Right, I mean, it's not a PR strategy, but it is a development strategy.
Yeah. You'll build it faster and you'll get closer to what the end user wants for sure.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a great point. I think that's also a great way for people to, and this may not have been illustrated enough, but AI is beta. It's good. It's past alpha. It's good enough to use. If you're really good at it, you can get some good results from it, but it's still a beta program. I think if that helps people be in the right mindset when they're going in, or at least for us who are in that field, who are testing things, it's like, oh, this is beta. It's like, okay, yes, like the little notification or the warning at the bottom. It's like Gemini can hallucinate. It might give you inaccurate information.
Yeah.
But try it anyway.
Well, so I do want to. Okay, I've been pretty harsh, I would say, up until this point in Gemini. I do. It's faster. I like the conversational aspect of it. I've had mediocre success in all areas that I tested, just me personally, except for one, that Gemini Advanced was definitively better than ChatGPT, and that was with what I did was I took a custom GPT that I've written. Because you can't create custom GPTs with Gemini, right? But I took all the information and I smushed it into one mega prompt. And I was like, let's go, Gemini. Let's see what you got. not only did it have no problem running the entire prompt, is like, in fact, I'm going to share it on my screen really quick. In this example, nope, not settings, share. In this example, it wrote definitively better cold emails. I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like, because it's definitely better, not just a little better. Like ChatGPT's out of the box, not even out of the box, but she's actually telling it how to do it. Its email writing always starts with, I hope this finds you well, right? And it has a certain thing to it. And from the sales industry, we have struggled with that, because that's something that a lot of salespeople are going to be asking for, is like, can it help me with writing emails and stuff? So I'm not going to show you all the back end of the post that's above here on the screen, because I'm not giving away my goodness to this custom GPT. We sell this. That's all I'm going to tell you.
You can pay them. Reach out to Scaled.
This is stuff we sell. So I'm not giving away the goodies there as for the thing, but you can see here, look, what it's doing is this really quick. I give it as something as easy as a website. Now, this is if I want to create cold email outreach from Loom, okay? From loom.com. That's the example I gave it. So it's like, great choice. And then what it's doing is it's going to go through a whole bunch of tasks. And now it's like, let's identify Loom's target customers and offerings. I'm not going to read all this. Then it does a great job. This is in the instructions, but I will tell you, ChatGPT fails at this quite often, is following up on what I tell it to do for the next steps. A very easy type OK to proceed to task 2. It just told me what the summary was. It told me what's going to come up next. It's holding my hand as the end user. That's all baked into the instructions, by the way. ChatGPT often ignores it and drives me nuts, but Gemini did not. We went into task 2, which is identifying job titles for Loom target buyers. So it came up with sales development representatives. And then another one that it used was customer support managers or representatives. I'm not sure. It used 2 of them. Then what we're trying to do is we're pinpointing industries that Loom targets customers. So we get into like industry and sub-industry. This is really important for creating highly personalized custom emails, because what we always try to train people on is, hey, you don't need to go faster with AI. You just need to get more highly personalized at scale. And that's where you see the success. So then we're analyzing trends for those specific personas and the value props from Loom that would be associated with them. And then what ultimately we want to do is it gave us 2 examples. And then what we have to do is create basically some jargon. And then what we're doing is creating what we call snippets. Now, this is where we stop with custom GPT, but I'm going to show you the difference. With a snippet, essentially what it's doing, I have it up on my screen, it's giving you the summary of everything that happened before it. It's like, look, for a job title of sales development representative, SDR, in technology and SaaS space, with the trends that they would be dealing with, such as hyper-personalization and outreach, asynchronous communication, demand for video content, then the Loom value props that were identified. By the way, the only thing we entered at the top of this was one website. Everything else has been generated by Gemini. Custom GPT does it too, right? Then the jargon. Okay, what we do now is we take this and we input this information and create highly personalized cold email sequences for clients. But what I will tell you is the emails that came out of this are not just a little better, they're drastically better. And I will just read you one of them. This would be for, I'm sorry, this is me telling it, excuse me. Let me go down a little farther. Email 1. This is for initial outreach for hyper-personalization. So we're dialing in on just one trend and value prop with some jargon. And it says, it didn't start with, I hope this email finds you well. It started with, hi, first name, by the subject line is outshine the competition with personalized outreach, then their first name. Hey, first name, I noticed. And then you enter something specific like an email or a LinkedIn post or whatever. And it got me thinking about how Loom could help your SDR team stand out from the inbox noise. Sales outreach often feels generic, but with Loom, you can create quick, personalized video introductions that showcase product benefits and context, so on and so forth. The second email, following up on my previous email, it actually wrote a very good sequence all the way through the breakup email at the end, where it's basically saying, maybe I caught you at a busy time. Is there anybody else that I could talk to? Which is what we always try to do. So it summarizes and does. So I won't keep going into that, but I will tell you without a doubt, when I did this last night, it blew me away. And my boss was going on a vacation, but I will tell you, when he's back, like next Tuesday, I will be showing this to him immediately and be like, hey, Jake, holy crap. This is what we can't get custom GPT to do. So wanted to throw that out there. It's definitely better.
I agree. And two things. Number one, it makes perfect sense because Gemini is primarily built off of internal Google data. So anything that you do with Google Suite or Google Workspace, all of those kinds of things, that it has some, for lack of a better term, finely tuned data sets on doing things like emails, because it has all the emails, right? So anything you think Google is really good at or offers as a service, that's going to translate over. So you're going to get better emails. You're probably going to get better letters and documents. You're probably going to get better spreadsheets and things like that, because that's what's all been available from Google. That's why, Carl, like you said, the Bard experience for searching and things is good because Google's got search. So I think this is all just a great example of what Gemini will probably just be better at for those specific use cases. And the second thing is, I agree with Carl, the UI on this thing is much more comfortable. I love, like, when you were scrolling through and you seeing all the bottom options, I love the make it more professional, make it more casual, the mores. And I did it like 3 or 4 times on on any response, and it was just getting better and better. I will admit there is a certain point where hitting more does cause it to crash, much like my video. And
it's a great freeze frame though.
Right. But one of the things that I liked was you can see 3 different drafts.
Yes.
Good
call out.
It doesn't just write one.
Yeah, exactly. And that is super helpful, especially if your response that you get after saying more is absolutely, and then it stops. It's like, oh, well, let me look at the drafts. Oh, draft number 3 is way better, and just choose that and move on from there, which is great. And sharing capability and all of those different options, I think that really, those are the kinds of things that I enjoyed when testing it out, is having that more comfortable and more options to go from there. And I think that's just an example of what Google's concerned with, and that's integration into its platform as a whole.
So there's 2 quick things. I agree with all of that. One that I just want to highlight, it has a check this answer. It's a picture of the Google, and it will do a Google search based on what you're talking about. It has given me absolute BS, total hallucination. And I can check all of those. It's like, no, we have no idea that URL that's linked does not exist. The other thing is that it actually can create Google Docs. You can share it to a Google Doc, and it will create a new Google Doc for you. Right now, it only does that per answer, so that's annoying. If I've had a full conversation, I'd like you to append it to the end of the Google Doc.
Just not this specific answer. Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, Brian, with the problem that you were having, is that an agent ability that it has been taken away? It's not giving it the agent ability to actually create the document just without you clicking the thing that says, yes, I want you to create the document.
Yeah, and by the way, I think all of this is coming in short order. Carl, you said, did they release it a little early? I don't know. You guys are probably right about like, hey, everybody go test it out for 2 months. It's what you want. That's better. I mean, I'm not against that either. I definitely think this is early. I definitely think by summer of this year, 2024, we're going to see documents created, more integrations with emails, all that kind of stuff. And I think, very a la a Copilot that's, with Microsoft, that's obviously who their probably more direct competitor is, I would say, is Microsoft Copilot and Gemini. Copilot has already kind of come out and integrated with some stuff with 365 and different things they're trying to do. And it's becoming more and more popular based off of obviously the OpenAI infrastructure and models and things like that. Obviously, Google wants to play in the same space. They want you to go, stay in the Google Sheets, stay in the Google presentation, stay in the slideshows and the emails. My company uses all Google Docs, and all that for work. So I'm not against this. This is actually pretty cool if it does this. And if it's just baked into Drive, that would be great. If I'm in Drive and I can just call up Gemini and it can do all these cool things, but then search all my documents and pull up the last 5 SOWs that I wrote that are kind of similar to what this next company is asking me for, and it saves me from having to write a net new SOW. Yes, I would love that. That is a huge, efficiency for something that we do in my company all the time. So there's a lot that I think can come from this. I would say the creativity, by the way, I did try, I had to try my movie mashup one. I did that one as well, where I took Shrek and Indiana Jones. It was comparable. It still gave me a really fun story. I had some fun going back and forth with it, and it did the movie mashup. So it did work with a very long, complex prompt like that as well. That one prompt probably had 16 different sub-prompt things in it with instructions and criteria. And I will say, again, credit where credit's due. It had zero problem reading a very long prompt. I don't know how long it was, but a very long prompt. And it did it, to your point, Jimmy. Like, I see what we're doing here. And off we went. There was like almost zero lag, which I was really, really impressed with. Last thoughts on this one.
I use it to write.
Yeah. Creativity, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it is better on the creativity side. Carl?
Even though I will, hang out with it for the 2 months, it's free. I don't see enough for me to pay the extra $20 to.
Oh, I agree with that.
Right. It just was like,
Yeah.
I built a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to pay an extra $20. And like, I still feel perplexity from a search perspective is better.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't, and I still don't trust Google that there's not going to be ads on here sometime in some form or some weird thing. I was like, that's coming in some weird way. So no, I'm not
right in the middle of your
right in the middle. It's like
in line. Yeah.
No,
Just a quick thing about the money. If you're already paying for the 2 terabyte Drive plan, then it's only $10 a month more because that's included.
Yeah, I think personally, I think they should have just made it a loss leader and tried to grab as much more attention from ChatGPT and OpenAI. But I get why they did it. But yeah, I agree with Carl. Yeah.
No user limits, right? I mean, that's their look, we know how expensive it is to run these things. So if there's no limits and we can use it straight on for 6 hours for $20, if that's the kind of stuff you're doing, if you're in creativity, if you're in marketing, this might be the tool for you. I'm not going to lie. You can write very complex prompts. You can do the exact same thing as custom GPTs. It's just not as polished, but clearly I was able to do it. I mean, if you have the means and the ability, anyway, we'll leave it there. What's more to come on this, because this certainly won't be the last time we talk about Gemini. Obviously, they're only building from here. But yeah, I guess I would end where Carl is, which is at the end of my 2-month free trial, I do not see me paying $20 a month. I don't think it has enough distinct value for me outside of OpenAI. Yeah. If I have $20 or $25, it's going to go to OpenAI still. And then we'll see how the next couple months. But I always say I don't have any allegiance to anybody. So if they end up becoming the better product, I have no problem pulling my money from one to the other just because I used one product for the last year and a half. I don't care. So whatever makes my life easier. So,
right.
All right, that's it. We'll see you guys next week. Have a safe holiday if you're here in the States, and we'll be back on Monday though. We'll have a whole bunch more shows. So until then, see you guys.
Aloha.